So yeah, I've got my name on here, just so I don't forget who I am. So yes, as Larissa said, my name's Shelley O'Brien. I grew up in Busselton, and I went off and worked around the place, and then came back to Busselton with my family. Worked across the southwest in various different roles. I'm a registered nurse as my background, but back in what are we now, 2008, I was really intrigued by a local project that was happening in the Margaret River region at that time, which was in suicide prevention. And I switched out of my role as a school nurse into a suicide prevention role. And I've been working in that role off and on with either federal funded projects or state funded projects since that time. I'm currently working as a suicide prevention coordinator across the southwest. I share that role with another person, and I work under the banner of St John of God Hospital, Community Alcohol Drug Service Team. You'll see some of our pamphlets up the back there. We're funded by the Mental Health Commission of WA. So we've just come to the end of a 3-year funded period. We're just about to move into another funded period. Our role is mainly around helping to build resilience and help to build community strength and strength in agencies and departments to help prevent suicide. And that looks very different in very different communities. It looks very different in Scott River to how it looks in Bunbury. So we try very hard to work from a grassroots level with as many people as we can, or as many departments or as many agencies. So we work to enhance the support in workplaces, to enhance the level of education and training and understanding, and that's in communities as well as in workplaces. I think Larissa touched on something really important towards the end of her talk, and that was about the importance of each and every one of us in our community having an effect, having an ability to be able to help prevent suicide. And we start that by these conversations that Larissa's talking about. It's about forming connections. It's about understanding when someone might be struggling, about noticing that and naming it up. That's the whole message around Are You OK Day. What follows on from that meaningful conversation is the potential to save someone's life. And that might sound very cliche, but it's really true. And what's happening at the moment across the southwest, and in fact in quite a lot of regions in WA, is that grassroots communities are making a difference. You know, there are agencies that are set up, you know, to help with mental health. There are agencies that are set up to help with drugs and alcohol. But unless we actually, as community members, really know what those are, understand how we might help a person to get there, and really we're the ones that notice. We're the ones that notice when someone's struggling. You know, the drug and alcohol agency don't go out wandering the streets looking for people who might need help. They're there if you need them. Whether they're great or whether the services out there are sufficient, those are community conversations to be had. And it is only from grassroots that communities actually understand where their gaps are, where their strengths are, and what they actually need to do to make changes. So that's why you guys are so important. This is why community members are so important. We're doing some wonderful things in Bridgetown and Boyup Brook at the moment with helping, you know, these grassroots communities to, they know what their problems are, they know what they need to do, you know, in some instances, but there's still quite a few gaps. And identifying what these gaps are and going out to try and find a concerted, coordinated community effort to start to fill some of those gaps or address some of those gaps is really important. You know, it's only going to come from, you know, advocacy from within a community that you will actually start to fill some of these gaps. So one of the ways that we have discovered is a really good way is to improve people's confidence, because it's one thing to recognise when someone's struggling, but it's another thing to go and have that conversation with them. Because what happens if I say the wrong thing? Or what happens if I don't know what to say? Or what happens if they tell me that they're actually really struggling? What do I do then? Where do I go? Who do I turn to? How do I find out where all of these services are and how to get access to them? You know, especially if I live in Scott River or if I live in Augusta. You know, we don't have all of these services here. So how do I actually find those? So one of the ways that we're helping to address that gap through the Open the Gate program is through the SafeTALks, which is happening here on the 22nd of October. So there's a flyer up there. Part of the funding that came out of the Scott River Ball is also funding free access to SafeTALK here. SafeTALK is a part of a suite of training. I encourage you to take one of these pamphlets when you leave to read up a bit about what SafeTALK's about. There's also a website where you can go in and have a look at a lot more detail in that, because there's also 2-day suicide intervention training. There's other sort of resources on the website as well. But what's coming to Augusta on the 22nd of October is SafeTALK. SafeTALK's appropriate for anyone in the community over the age of 15. Already talking to a lady here tonight that said, great, I'll bring my 16-year-old daughter along. That's perfect. 16-year-olds are absolutely in the firing line, aren't they, at the moment, with mental health and well-being amongst their friends. So what do they do if their friend starts telling them that they're really depressed, that they just don't want to go on anymore? What do they do? So this training it's only half a day. It's what we call suicide alertness. So it's really about making you alert to what is it that I'm worried about here that's leading me to think it could be about suicide. There are certain things that we look for. So this will talk about what are those signs and symptoms, what does suicide thoughts actually look like. So people often don't come straight out and tell you, do they? They don't say, I'm thinking about suicide. There's quite a lot of ways that people tell you that they're struggling. But you don't know unless you ask. So this program here is about helping you to recognise and then to talk about it, then to ask the question, and then to listen a little bit to that person, listen to what their needs are, and then help them keep safe. That's that TALK acronym. Tell, ask, listen, keep safe. So really in 4 hours, you're going to gain the skills to be able to become a listener, a suicide talker. So really that is recognising anyone in your community, very quickly being able to link them into services. Not you taking care of them. You don't take that responsibility for their well-being, but you help them. You help them to help themselves. And you can also, we send you away with resources and a list of resources that you will have access to, general resources. And we encourage you then to find out what other resources. And we heard some, we heard about Eve, was it? We hear about, when we do this training, people say, oh, and there's not just Eve, but there's, so-and-so down the corner, or this GP is really great, or, visiting, coming into town on a Tuesday might be this person. So it's a real arming yourself with, I suppose, the ability then to be able to help people keep safe. But I think the bottom line is, and what Larissa started to say, it's really important to understand, suicide is everybody's business. And it doesn't mean to say that we take on the responsibility. We don't take on that responsibility, we're taking on care, and we're taking on a real ability to be able to make an effective difference, to be able to help other people. And certainly, I think we will continue to talk to the people at Open the Gate about what continues to happen in communities to build that resilience, to build that sort of that structure. But a really important step in that is starting to build that understanding and that education of communities. So I really encourage you to spread the word about the SafeTALKs that are coming down here, and I'll leave my cards out as well, because as I say, I'm a suicide prevention coordinator across the southwest. We are connected in many ways to people to help spread resources and to help build that resilience. So please get in contact with us if you have any questions. So thank you.
Thank you.